I really like to come to Brazil. For I like the people, and and actually, I think I'm being able to create a lot of value in Brazil with Waze, with movies, with my new book. So I'm happy to create value. This is maybe my destiny, and I'm happy to be in a place that I can be valuable.
Well, you did create value for a city like São Paulo because, well, I guess this is a perfect city for a solution like Waze. So thank you for that. All
Yeah.
right. Well, since we are talking already about urban mobility, it's been a few years since Waze was launched. So, do you think that since then, in these years, do you think that the challenges of urban mobility, especially in a city like São Paulo, have changed since then? Have they become more challenging?
So, I arrived this morning. I landed at about 5:35, and I was lucky that there was no line at the passport control. So I was out by 6 o'clock. I took my car, the car that was waiting for me, and Waze say that I am going to get to the hotel at 7:35, so 95 minutes, right? And I was at the hotel at 7:36, so really on time. This is
Mhm.
perhaps the most significant value that Waze brings today to São Paulo, right? The ability to plan, the ability to be on time, to create certainty. And even though the traffic jams today are more severe than before, Waze takes away the uncertainty, and that's huge value to the people. Now, if we really want to address the issues of traffic jams, then we need to address that completely different with, by and large, with public transportation.
Mhm. And how can the recent explosion of artificial intelligence help with that, whether in development of new solutions for public administrators or for the users themselves?
So, look, in order to address mobility, the nature of the beast is that when you think of one of the major highways here, and just imagine during the busy hour, 1 kilometer of one lane, right? So one lane, 1 kilometer in length. In this one lane, there are about 40 to 45 vehicles. And in these 45 vehicles, there are 50 people. So 50 people occupying 1 kilometer of the road, of a lane. Right? And if we don't change the ratio between the number of passengers and the number of vehicles, we will be stuck in traffic. This has nothing to do with AI. This has a lot to do with making hard decisions, right? And I don't see AI makes hard decisions.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, we will need to have someone to make that decision that we are going to change, mobility to support way more public transportation. And at the, when you think about the consumer side of mobility, right? So we have, by and large, three elements that we choose our mobility based on that. The first one is convenient. The second one is speed. And the last one is cost. If we can design a public transportation system that provides um, you know, convenient at faster than driving your own car, then, and in particular, if this is less expensive, then people would choose that. This is exactly what we need to do. Again, nothing to do with AI, but
Hmm.
has a lot to do with autonomous vehicle right now. In general, I would say autonomous vehicle is way more AI than language generation because autonomous vehicle actually make decisions.
Definitely, yeah. And that's a matter of environmental sustainability, also urban planning, right?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Hmm.
End of the day, it requires a mayor or a governor of São Paulo state, or maybe even president to make very hard decisions and basically say, if you want to design something completely different, then you need to rethink the whole process. You need to think about it from the user perspective and then serve the user. Because if we are trying to force users, then we cannot. At the end of the day, users will choose based on those criteria: convenience, speed, cost.
Hmm. Well, following that, regarding self-driving cars, how do you envision the role of self-driving cars in reshaping urban infrastructure and transportation systems, especially in a densely populated city like São Paulo?
So if we don't do anything, the future is actually going to be worse before it will become better, right? Because if you think about it, the nature of the beast is number of passengers per vehicle, right? That ratio. And autonomous vehicles are actually going to change this ratio to be even lower, right? Not necessarily. There are empty cars that are driving on the street, and that's obviously even worse than before. But if we combine that together with a plan, and the plan is basically saying, okay, wait a minute, in order for public transportation to be efficient, you have a lot of dedicated roads. For a second, just imagine half of the roads are only for public transportation. And on those half of the roads, what we have is small vehicles with high frequency that are going back and forth. That's it, going back and forth like an elevator, right? And these vehicles can be autonomous, right? Because there are no other cars on the streets, on those particular streets or those particular roads. And the result is that we will have a public transportation that can serve you anywhere to anywhere, right? Half of the roads, way faster than anything else because they do not stand in traffic jams and there are no other vehicles there. And if this is autonomous vehicles, then we can subsidize that at the 100% level. So this is the future of urban mobility. End of the day, this is how we will have urban mobility in the future.
Very well. Well, changing a bit subject, you're participating of VTEX Day these days, which is an event focused on e-commerce, entrepreneurship, and business. And well, beyond the urban mobility, you've been involved in several other ventures. So what criteria do you use to evaluate new business opportunities?
So look, if you look at successful companies around you, all the successful companies were successful because they were creating value. At the end of the day, a successful business creates a lot of value. And the simplest way to create value is actually start with the problem, solve a problem. So in general, for me, it's always start with the problem. And this is, the T-shirt that I'm wearing, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. This is what we wrote. Because when you start with the problem and you're building a solution to that, it's guaranteed that you're creating value. And it's when you focus on the problem is going to serve as the North Star of your journey. And if you have a North Star, you're going to make less deviations and obviously increase the likelihood of being successful. And the last part is that your story is going to be way more compelling. Just imagine that we will have a dialogue somewhere in 2007 before I started Waze, and I will tell you, oh, I'm going to build an AI crowdsource-based navigation system. And you're going to say, oh, yeah, very interesting, but you don't care. If I will tell you I'm going to help you to avoid traffic jams, then you do care. And when your customer cares, they are going to help you to become successful. So this is why I would say always start with the problem. For me, all of my startups are, they start with a problem that is worth solving, a problem that is being validated with a lot of people. So we know that the problem is actually worth solving. And then a strong team. And this is how we start with all of them.
All right, very good. And in your opinion, what are some of the most pressing issues in the field of entrepreneurship today, and how can aspiring entrepreneurs address them?
So I think that at the end of the day, entrepreneurs are very, very important for the future, right? Because at the end of the day, you look at who is changing the world, and they're always entrepreneurs, right? You look at all the successful companies, and they all started by an entrepreneur. If this happens to be, 20 years ago, like maybe a Facebook, or less than that, 7 years ago, like OpenAI, or 26 years ago, like Netflix, or 45 years ago, like Apple. or 150 years ago with any other company, right? They all started with an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurs are going to change the world. And to a certain extent, I would say, I wrote my book in order to help entrepreneurs to become more successful, increase their likelihood of being successful. Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, that wrote the foreword to my book, he called that the Bible for entrepreneurs. But essentially, it's
That's
going
great.
to all the business people in the world, and actually a lot of other people as well. And because people know me as an entrepreneur, and I'm definitely an entrepreneur, no doubt about it. But I'm also a teacher, so I feel equally rewarded if I build stuff myself or I guide someone to build it. And the result is that I wrote the book in order to fulfill my destiny as a teacher and share my know-how and my experience with others to help them to become more successful. Now, this is rather rare because most of the entrepreneurs are not teachers. And as it turns out, the experience is a critical path or a critical cornerstone of successful entrepreneurs. Second-time entrepreneur have way higher likelihood of being successful, regardless what happened on the first time. Now, if you don't need to go through that journey and fail, if you can read the book and learn, that's even better.
All right, great. Turning back to AI a little, with this increasing integration of AI into, well, everything. What ethical considerations do you think entrepreneurs and tech companies should prioritize when developing AI-driven products?
So I think that in general, every time there is new technology or new capabilities or new tool, we need to look at them and ask ourselves, how is that going to change our life? And if you're a business, then you need to ask yourself two questions, right? Whether or not this is going to make you irrelevant. And if it's not, then how should I use that in order to create more value? Now, there are two ways that you can create value. One is to your customers, and the other one is increase productivity for yourself. I think that most of the capabilities that we are seeing today are focusing on increased capabilities, or sorry, increased productivity for their own business, right? So maybe doing more efficient customer support, maybe more efficient code development, maybe more efficient marketing campaigns, and so forth. So in most cases, we are seeing the AI being used for increased productivity. Very few places that I've seen AI being used as new offering to the market. Not yet, but we probably will see that. There's always a fear is that they're going to take away our job. And look, throughout history, every time that there was something new, people say, oh, it's going to take away our job. The unemployment rate is going to increase. And you look at the history and you say, no, unemployment did not increase. What did happen is that there was increase in productivity and therefore increase in the size of the market. And occasionally there was change of the type of jobs that they are. But increase in unemployment rate was never there.
Do you think artificial intelligence should be regulated by laws like the European AI Act or something more along the lines of what the US is working on, more dependent on regulatory agencies?
Not yet. Eventually, yes, but not yet. Because in general, if you create regulations before it's being used, then you prevent innovation. If you look at the different use cases and then you basically say, okay, these use cases are okay and this one is not okay, let's regulate those, then you're in a much better shape than trying to prevent something up front. At the end of the day, we have no idea about creativity that we will see over the years of new companies or new use cases of AI. And therefore, there is no way that we can regulate them.
Okay, and one last question. Let's make an exercise here. Looking back to your own journey, what advice would you give to your younger self or to other entrepreneurs that are embarking on their startup journeys today?
So probably few, right? So the first one is don't be afraid to fail, right? And if you're afraid to fail, then you're not going to go into this journey. So don't be afraid to fail. And in particular, once you realize that the journey itself is a journey of failures, right? So you have to fail fast. The faster that you fail, you still have plenty of time to make another attempt and another attempt and another attempt and so forth. And the more attempts that you have, you increase the likelihood of being successful. And this is really important, right? Just imagine the biggest enemy of good enough is perfect. You don't need to be perfect in order to win the market. You need to be good enough. And the way that you're going to become good enough is that you start with not good enough, and you iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate until you become good enough. This is how you're going to win the market. And this is critical to understand, because occasionally we would like to build something that is perfect, and we are going to miss the market. And the second one is that, look, this journey requires you to make a lot of hard decisions. You need to make those hard decisions with conviction. You cannot wait, because if you do wait, then everyone realizes that the decision needs to be made, and you are not making that decision. If you're not making that decision, then the top performing people are going to leave you. And the last one is never give up, right? You go into this journey. It's a long roller coaster journey of failures. Don't give up.